Even after the introduction of CDJ 1000, people were taking CDJs more seriously, but they still were kind of clowned on. Rock Rada and the rest of the executioners didn't switch from vinyl. DJ Premier, he had a mixtape called No Talent Required in the mid 2000s. He believed that digital DJing required zero talent. The mixtape cover literally had a couple CDJs here. A few years later, dude's on Serato. He's digital DJing. And then, in turn, that's DJ A-Track, who DMC world champion, scratching on CDJs just a few weeks ago. DVS was actually adapted pretty fast by DJs. Final Scratch was kind of iffy. Serato, though, was where it really kind of took off, and that was basically like about 3 years. And I'm actually going to bring on PJ for this.
I was working at Guitar Center, and it was during the changeover between Final Scratch version 2 to Serato. Guys like DJ AM were inspiring other people to start using Serato. The idea was get rid of your crates. You don't have to get on an airplane to DJ somewhere else. You just bring your laptop and your Serato box and timecode vinyl and your needles. So it went from carrying crates and crates and crates of records and having the risk of them either warping, getting damaged, or getting lost during transport, whether you're local or you're, flying, and it brought it down to a laptop, and that it was a big deal. And Final Scratch kind of started it, and Serato was the thing that brought it to critical mass.
At the same time, roughly, you were actually using CDJs. You were actually a relatively early adopter in the Scratch community from CDJs. How many people did you know in like your local area of Detroit who use CDJs, especially who weren't a techno DJ?
Well, my mentor DJ Marquise he was open format, and he was also a house producer who liked to scratch. So for him, being a producer and making his own remixes, he adopted the CDJs pretty fast. And I think I knew a few people that did it, but then there's people like my friend DJ Godfather, who was known for the ghetto tech music genre. While he was okay on CDJs, he just preferred the 12-inch moving platter. So he was actually an early adopter of the CDX, the Newmark CDX during the time.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
The CDX, just so you know, was actually a moving platter CD player that Newmark actually put out. Rather ahead of his time, there was an issue with the motors burning out that just kind of happened over and over and over again. And so people just ended up being kind of scared of buying it. By the time they fixed the issues, it was already too late. But very, very cool at the time. One reason, arguably, that DVS, Final Scratch, Serato, etc., took off among the hip-hop community, basically, you buy a set of 1200s, and it's a massive investment, and they last forever. And then you keep on buying vinyl over and over and over again. You spent this stupid amount of money on vinyl. With digital, or DVS, digital vinyl, you got a timecode record, you're at least still using your turntables. The sunk cost fallacy is not always ignorance or being stuck in your ways. It's also a trap that basically comes from means, like basically economic means and just where you come from, like your lot in life. What's interesting is, PJ, prior to you and your local DJ partner buying CDJs, you said that your father had CDJ 500s, CDJ 700s. But what turntables did you have prior to getting your first CDJ 800s with your DJ partner?
I didn't get a Technics because I just couldn't afford it during the time. As a teenager, I was on really cheap direct drive turntables, the Gemini XL 500s. The general thing that the DJ community would teach is learn on Technics because it's the only thing you're going to be using from here on out. Get used to that. Don't learn on anything else because it's going to hinder you. But I got on the XL 500s, and the thing that taught me was to be really, really light with your hands. You put a little too much pressure on it, it has such little torque that the platter slows down. And because I was using these XL 500s for so many years and learned to have a light touch, learning not to make the needle skip, I think that kind of prepared me for the feel on the CDJ 800, which was the first CDJ with vinyl emulation that I used.
How much more did the CDJ 800 cost you?
They were definitely more than a turntable. I forgot what they were during the time. The Technics turntable during those days were like $450.
The CDJ 800 was actually $800 at the time.
That sounds about right.
And then the CDJ 1000 was $1,099. But you could buy a CD, a stack of recordable CDs, and basically burn your own CDs for pennies.
Yeah, the initial cost was much more because you were investing it into the CDJ.
In the long run, they would have actually saved money, switching to CDJs early, because they could have just burned CDs, with their music. A lot of DJs who are professionals don't actually own CDJs. They will use whatever at home, like a XDJ RX2 or XZ, like you have in your lab, or a controller or turntables at home. But then they go to a club and they plug into CDJs either with a USB stick, with Rekordbox, or you can control Serato with HID mode. Up until recently, though, it's still been kind of a dirty word to use CDJs, and you can still get a lot of DJs who are just beginning to kind of step into that world.
The European dance market was very strong in the early adoption of even the pre-CDJ 1000. The engineers who created it wanted digital scratching, but the ones who started to adopt it were the DJs who didn't scratch. So It was kind of it was an interesting way everything panned out. In my local, like I grew up in Detroit, it was always those higher end parties that, cost $50 to get into the club, where there were more CDJs and you would see more turntables everywhere else. There was almost like a class difference between the CDJ user and the turntable user.
Yeah, it's like arguably the reason why DVS actually took off is you were more likely to have a cheap laptop that you could basically hook up to your turntables than you were 2Gs to be buying a pair of CDJs.
You also could use existing gear that has been around since the 1970s, and you just need 2 timecode, 1 little interface, and a laptop, which for some people, they already have a laptop and they already have access to turntables, versus 1 piece of gear that's completely new and a bigger initial investment versus gear that already exists in your access.
These are the kind of questions that we have to think about in product planning. Just starting out, potentially, as many of you are, you have the advantage of not having preconceived notions that a lot of professionals do this for a living and depend on, their equipment being exactly the same to, not screw up and so they can eat. It's a completely different mindset. So how do you not get trapped in serving the existing customers rather than like listening to the needs of people like you, who are frankly going to replace all of us? If you are doing something that has a customer, you really have to empathize with the people that you're trying to help and know where they're coming from. And rather than getting mad about adopting your new idea or whatever, all that matters is that you get to be part of doing something that makes the world better, be it like in your neighborhood or in a broader sense. If there's actually a real intrinsic reason, in their lives causing them to, not kind of, hear what you're saying, put yourself in their shoes. And I promise you that, the results will be improved for it.